What is up, everybody? We're on day 64 of our Bible in a Year series, starting off the book of Joshua today, and it's gonna be fun. Um, we've moved past Moses, right? And this is where we're going to see the next steps as they kind of step into, figuratively and literally, step into the promise that God gave them. We are reading through the CSB, that is the Christian Standard Bible. If you're interested, there is a link to the Bible I use for a lot of my study. It's the CSB Apologetics Study Bible. It is a very good resource. I have a link to that in the description, as well as a video I have breaking down why I think that is such a good resource. So let's jump straight in. Joshua 1. After the death of Moses, the Lord's servant, the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now you and all the people prepare to cross over the Jordan to the land I am giving the Israelites. I have given you every place where the sole of your foot treads, just as I promised Moses. Your territory will be from the wilderness in Lebanon to the great river, the Euphrates River, all the land of the Hittites, and west of the Mediterranean Sea. No one will be able to stand against you as long as you live. I will be with you, just as I was with Moses. I will not leave you or abandon you. Be strong and courageous, for you will distribute the land I swore to their ancestors to give them as an inheritance. Above all, be strong and very courageous. Now remember, we heard that in the end of Numbers, or in the end of Deuteronomy. And I pointed out this is going to be a continuing theme here, especially in the beginning part of Joshua. Verse 7, above all, be strong and very courageous to observe carefully the whole instruction my servant Moses commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you will have success wherever you go. This book of instruction must not depart from your mouth. You are to meditate on it day and night, so that you may carefully observe everything written in it. For then you will prosper and succeed in whatever you do. Haven't I commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, go through the camp and tell the people, get provisions ready for yourselves, for within 3 days you will be crossing the Jordan to go in and take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving you to inherit. Joshua said to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh, remember that Moses, the Lord's servant, commanded you when he said, the Lord your God will give you rest, and he will give you this land. Your wives, dependents, and livestock may remain in the land Moses gave you on this side of the Jordan, but your best soldiers must cross over in battle formation ahead of your brothers and help them until the Lord gives your brothers rest, as he has given you, and they too possesses the land the Lord your God is giving them. You may then return to the land of your inheritance and take possessions of what Moses, the Lord's servant, gave you on the east side of the Jordan. They answered Joshua, everything you have commanded us we will do, and everywhere you send us we will go. We will obey you just as we obeyed Moses in everything. Certainly the Lord your God will be with you, as he was with Moses. Anyone who rebels against your order and does not obey your words and all that you command him will be put to death. Above all, be strong and courageous. We're about to see it's going to be similar to what we saw previously. The story of, why Joshua is here. The story of the spies that were sent into the promised land to scout it out for Israel. And Joshua and Caleb were the only two that said, no, like, we can do this. Everyone else backed out. And that's why they ended up wandering in the desert. Side note, I saw, my wife actually sent me a post, someone claiming that Israel had to wander in the desert because of their grumbling. But if you've been reading along with us, That's not the case. They had to stay out in the desert because they did not have faith in God, because when the spies came back, they were not willing to go into the land. They didn't think that God could do what he said he was going to do. So we're about to see here a little bit different. These spies are going into Jericho, but they're going to be going forward, and they will be reporting back. And Joshua 2. Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 men as spies from the acacia grove, saying, "Go and scout the land, especially Jericho." So they left, and they came to the house of a prostitute named Rahab, and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, "Look, someone of the Israelite men have come here tonight to investigate the land." Then the king of Jericho sent word to Rahab and said, "Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, for they came to investigate the entire land." But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. So she said, "Yes, the men did come to me, but I didn't know where they were from. At nightfall, when the city gate was about to close, the men went out, and I don't know where they were going. Chase after them quickly, you can catch up with them." But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them among the stalks of flax that she had arranged on the roof. The men pursued them along the roads and to the fords of the Jordan, and as soon as they left to pursue them, the city gate was shut. Before the men fell asleep, she went up on the roof and said to them, "I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that the terror of you has fallen on us, and everyone who lives in this land is panicking because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, and the 2 Amorite kings you completely destroyed across the Jordan. When we heard this, we lost heart, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. Now, please swear to me by the Lord that you will also show kindness to my father's family, because I showed kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father, mother, brothers, sisters, and all who belong to them, and save us from death." So it's kind of interesting to see, there's a reaction to people that aren't even, haven't even come into like direct contact with Israel yet. There is still a reaction to them seeing the things, or in hearing about the things that have gone on around them. And God is powerful, and that shows through. Verse 14, the men answered her, "We will give our lives for yours. If you don't report our mission, we will show kindness and faithfulness to you when the Lord gives us the land." Then she let them down by a rope through the window, since she lived in a house that was built into the wall of the city. "Go to the hill country, so that the men pursuing you won't find you." She said to them, "Hide there for 3 days until they return. Afterward, go on your way." Now, this will come up later, but I think it's good to go ahead and point this out. With Jericho, this was most likely it's not a city in the way that we would think of a city. It is most likely a military fortress, and everyone that is there in Jericho, in the city, is actually military. The only exceptions would be supporting roles of some kind. So Rahab, the prostitute, she is there to offer services for the military men of Jericho that are there. They're likely going to be people that are making food, like bakers and brothels, like all kinds of things like this, that are there as supporting roles to the military. But it's not really a bunch of just random families in the city and things like that. It's important coming up. We'll see going forward. I believe it'll be tomorrow. But that's why it mentions that her house was built into the wall. And so she probably had a it was probably noticeable what her house was. They made it clearly evident what this was. They also made it the fact of who she was. It made it less suspicious if people were trying to go into her house secretly. They were trying to avoid being seen, like who they actually were. And so the nature of what she was doing ended up maybe allowing the spies to get in there more easily and find her house more easily. Not that they were necessarily looking for her specifically beforehand, but interesting stuff though. Verse 17, the men said to her, we will be free from this oath you made us swear, unless when we enter the land you tie the scarlet cord to the window through which you let us down. Bring your father, mothers, brothers, and all your father's family into your house. If anyone goes out the doors of your house, his death will be his own fault, and we will be innocent. But if anyone with you in the house should be harmed, his death will be our fault. And if you report our mission, we are free from the oath you made us swear. Let it be as you say, she replied, and she sent them away. After they had gone, she tied the scarlet cord to the window. So the two men went into the hill country and stayed there 3 days until the pursuers had returned. They searched all along the way, but did not find them. Then the men returned, came down from the hill country, and crossed the Jordan. They went to Joshua, son of Nun, and reported everything that had happened to them. They told Joshua, the Lord has handed over the entire land to us. Everyone who lives in this land is also panicking because of us. Now, another point that may be kind of interesting to bring up too, and I think this is partially because of the nature of what Rahab was doing, she had a lot of information. And so she knew, like, hey, when you guys leave, go here and wait for 3 days and then come back. So she probably, not only just with what she was doing, but she was around a lot of the soldiers when they were more casual, you could say. So maybe at the like a pub, a brothel, or something like that, and she overheard a lot of conversation, I'm sure. And so I think it's interesting that she was able to give them such specific information. I think that's probably part of the reason why. Yeah. Okay. Joshua 3. Joshua started early the next morning and left the acacia grove. With all the Israelites, they went as far as the Jordan and stayed there before crossing. After 3 days, the officers went through the camp and commanded the people, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God carried by the Levitical priest, you are to break camp and follow it, but keep a distance of about 1,000 yards between yourselves and the ark. Don't go near it, so that you can see the way to go, for you haven't traveled this way before. Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, because the Lord will do wonders among you tomorrow. Then he said to the priest, carry the ark of the covenant and go on ahead of the people. So they carried the ark of the covenant and went ahead of them. The Lord spoke to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, so they will know that I will be with you, just as I was with Moses. Command the priests carrying the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the water, stand in the Jordan. Then Joshua told the Israelites, come closer and listen to the words of the Lord your God. He said, you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly dispossess before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. When the ark of the covenant of the Lord of the whole earth goes ahead of you into the Jordan, now choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man for each tribe. When the feet of the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of the whole earth, come to rest in the Jordan's water, its water will be cut off. The water flowing downstream will stand up in a mass. When the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carried the ark of the covenant ahead of the people. Now the Jordan overflows its banks throughout the harvest season, but as soon as the priests carrying the ark reach the Jordan, their feet touch the water at its edge. Now, maybe this is something, maybe it's coincidence. I don't think so. I think this is kind of symbolic to we saw when the Israelites first left Egypt, one of the first things that they see is the Red Sea splitting and they go across on dry ground. I don't think it's ironic or coincidence that as they're going into this promised land, one of the first things that they see happen is the river is held up. They cross through. So it's almost God kind of like saying, like, here, we're doing this again. Verse 16, and the water flowing downstream stood still, rising up in a mass that extended as far as Adam, a city next to Zarethan. The water flowing downstream into the sea of the Arabah, the Dead Sea, was completely cut off, and the people crossed opposite Jericho. The priests carrying the Ark of the Lord's covenant stood firmly on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel crossed on dry ground until the entire nation had finished crossing the Jordan. Okay. That is it as far as the reading goes. Side note, imagine being one of those, and this just like, it's popped in my head. I don't have it in notes or anything like that, but I've thought about it before. But imagine being one of those priests, and as you step out, expecting to step into water, and it just like moves around you and then starts to build up, and it's cut off, and it's just dry ground there. Like, that is just nuts. Absolutely nuts. Okay. Questions for today. Question 1. God repeatedly tells Joshua to be strong and courageous in chapter 1. What do you think gives us that kind of strength when stepping into the unknown? I think that kind of strength is only going to come from God. I think maybe part of the reason why that this is told to Joshua so many times is because God is trying to maybe build up his confidence or reassure him, hey, I am with you, right? So I can imagine Joshua probably, he's taking over from Moses, and he has seen, or if we don't know for sure, I don't think if Joshua was there in Egypt, but I don't think he was. At the very least, he has heard the stories of what happened in Egypt, how God performed these miracles through Moses, right? And then he has seen other things since then that God has done, and kind of working through Moses as well. So imagine having to step up and fill that role. Like, that would be pretty intense. So I think part of this is a reassurance from God that, because it isn't just be strong and courageous. What we see a lot is be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And so it's kind of a reassurance there that you can be strong and courageous because God is with you. I think that's some of what was going on. So at least the God reassuring him, but that's how we can take that into our lives. We know God is never going to leave us or forsake us, and because of that, we also know that God causes all things to work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So there's these promises that we can stand on, that we know no matter what happens, even if it's a bad thing that happens, God can turn it around for good. And we have confidence in who God is and what God has said. And so we can walk in that confidence. Not confidence in ourselves, confidence in God. Question 2. How does Rahab's role in chapter 2 show that God's plan can include unexpected people, and what might that mean for us today? I think God, there's a phrase I heard. I don't know who originally said it. Probably somebody way smarter than me. But the phrase is, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Now, I do think that can be used by some people as an excuse to not do something or not try to learn more or make yourself better or more educated or build a skill or things like that. But I do think we do see that as a typical kind of theme throughout all of Scripture. We see Rahab, we see David was not qualified in the way that that Saul was qualified when David became king. We see that Paul wrote like 27% of the New Testament and started off going around and I mean killing Christians. And so there's a lot of things there that throughout the Bible really that get at this theme. And so I think we shouldn't be surprised when we see, I even if you look at people today, like how many people have made massive impacts for the kingdom that started off not at all Christian. C.S. Lewis was a major theologian at this time of really his lifetime and then beyond. Like he still is very, very impactful. And he started off as he was not a Christian, right? Looking at people like Phil Robertson's one I think of, Brian Welch from Cord. Like there's just so many people that have had big impacts for the kingdom that started off completely against it, or at the very least outside of it. I heard kind of speaking to this idea, I heard somebody say before too that it wouldn't surprise them at all if the next Billy Graham is waking up on a Sunday morning hungover and strung out on drugs, because that's what God does. He takes and like the story of Gideon, he takes and he wants it to be clear this was not anybody but God. And that's why I don't think we should be surprised when we see people like what we see with Rahab, who is not a typical role that you would think as a hero or a helper, and she is helping. She actually plays a huge role. She is, we'll get to that later. Question 3. The crossing of the Jordan in chapter 3 mirrors the Red Sea. Okay, I didn't realize that was in this question. What does this event teach us about trusting God's power in moments of transition? I think, again, this was kind of setting back like, hey, you messed up. We got out of we got out of Egypt. We crossed the Red Sea. I don't know why I just blinked there. And so I think it's God mirroring, hey, got out of Egypt. We crossed here and you messed up, but we're going back and we're starting over. Like we're doing this fresh. You're crossing here. And so I think it is kind of a resetting some of that. I think it is also, when your back is against the wall, like literally against the wall, and there's nowhere else to go, nothing to do, that doesn't mean that God can't still do something. Like God can, if it's his will for something to be done. Like I think of Paul. Paul was told he was going to talk to Caesar, and nothing dissuaded that. Even when you see like when he's shipwrecked and he's picking up the sticks and the snake bites him, right? And everyone expected, like they were expecting Paul was going to die because they recognized his stake. They knew that he probably was not going to live through this. And Paul just shook it off and walked on. Why? Because Paul knew God said, you're going to speak to Caesar. And so Paul knew he was going to speak to snake, wasn't going to stop that. That is just sheer confidence in God and who he is, his character, what he has promised, and everything that goes along with that. That is it for today. So appreciate everyone watching. If you're still watching to this point, like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff really helps boost the videos and the algorithm. Word of mouth is still the best way the podcast spread as well. So if this has been a blessing to you, spread it to other people. Let them jump in and see. Um, Hopefully they'll be blessed by it as well. I just want to provide a way for people to have someone that they can read along with, so they can be more consistent with their reading. That's what a lot of this series that we're doing is. So yeah, if it's been a blessing to you, pass it on to others. And we'll be getting into more with Joshua and more with Jericho tomorrow. Very, very fascinating story. So don't get aware. Come back, hear that. God bless.